Hi, so today we're going to really focus on this XML thing I kept mentioning. So you kind of seen it already, you used it before, but you didn't really know what is this thing where you saw XAML. That's what it's called in your actual thing. But it actually is a type of XML. So XML is kind of a type of scripting and stuff like that, okay? Now, for those of you who've seen HTML, which is HTML like this, it looks really similar, but it's different, okay? Now, if you want to know more information about XML, I did leave a link for you guys on slide number 4. Okay, so if you go to slide number 4, of this XML1, you're going to see a link for the W3 school on XML, okay? I wrote what it stands for right there for you guys if you want to really know what it actually stands for. But like I say, it's just a markup language which we use when we're doing things, okay? And it's really useful when we're using WPF. So there's this connection, okay? So I'm going to put some more meaning in it so that it's more helpful so you can make more powerful code, okay? Now, in terms of what is the difference between XML to HTML? I know some of you out there probably go, okay, I know HTML, and you know HTML is for making websites, but XML, of course, you can use it for making well, not really for making websites, but more for structuring things, structuring data in some kind of tree-like structure, okay? So you have this idea of still using tags, but HTML has tags that are predefined by HTML, like how things are going to be. You know, you have the HTML tag, instead of HTML, you have body, instead of body, you have like paragraph, all these particular tags already defined. But what about having the power of making your own tags? Making it so you can make it unique, so that it doesn't have to be just the particular ones that are specified, okay? So XML is one that gives you the chance to actually have your own unique tags to structure something in some meaningful way, okay? So I'm going to show you some basic XML stuff, which you actually have on slide number 4, or 5 actually. Okay. So on slide 5, you kind of have this structure that you see a root. And then for every single opening of a tag, you also have to have a corresponding closing. So for this root, I'm going to say that there's also a root here. Okay. So you have a corresponding opening and closing for that root tag. Inside of it, so this is kind of like the parent, you have the children. Now, inside of that one, you can have a child. And with the child, it may have children inside of it. But of course, again, because you have the opening of a child tag, you also have to have a closing. Okay? Now, inside this child, maybe they may have some subchildren. Okay? So inside of here, I'm going to put a subchild. So let's go over this syntax a little bit, because this is just the basic syntax, but there's so much more inside of this than this, okay? Now, the syntax, of course, you have these square, kind of like these type of brackets, okay? With these particular brackets, it's always open and closing, okay? When you're closing it, you always have that slash inside of it. Now, we have different ways of representing this slash, like maybe you might have it all contained. Like this root, opening and closing, for example, we could have made it so that it was just one if it had no children inside. But because we have children inside, we have to actually represent them like this, okay? But this subchild here has no child inside of it, so we could possibly change it where we actually had this all inside of one tag, okay? But I'll show you how that looks like shortly, okay? If you're to look at slide number 6, it goes through a couple more examples, more detailed examples of how this works. So I have one over here about a book category. So inside of a book, it has a title, has an author, has a year, and a price, okay? Obviously, you can have multiple books, so of course you can do the same thing multiple times. So for every single book, you could put some data inside of it. With your XML, you can have properties, okay? So so far this one doesn't have properties, but what about for a book, right? So properties that you may have just for a book is a category. So it has a property that's predefined inside of it, so it's a type of child. Now, other properties you may have is actually the value or something that you have for the book, like what's the price. So that could be a number property, or it could be a property that you're actually predefining right into the tag itself. So if you look over and take your time looking at slide number 6, and you can see a little bit more examples of what I'm talking about, okay? So the examples go on to slide number 7, very similar to what I talked about in terms of having XML. Slide 8 has a nice table that goes through the difference between XML and HTML, which we discussed earlier. And slide 9 shows that part where I was mentioning in terms of we have this way of representing tags, so we don't have to always have it structured like this. I could rephrase this particular subchild one and make it so it's actually all in one tag. Okay, so I'm going to show you the equivalent of this subchild without having it in 2. Okay, so if I was to rewrite this here, it would be the subclass, and then I would just simply put a backslash here. So this here could be placed inside of here. It's equivalent, and this is a case where maybe you don't need to actually put anything within it. So this is actually exactly equivalent code, okay? And this works where you maybe have some properties that you want to put inside of there. So if you go back into your Visual Studio, look at XML, look at that XAML right at the bottom of your bottom window when you're doing WPF, and notice that what you're really doing is this XML thing. And notice the structure of how things work. Because once you understand how the design model maps out to your actual XML, then you can be able to do a lot more fun stuff when you're actually doing your code. Okay. Now, these properties that I keep mentioning, I say just as properties, but they're actually called attributes and elements. Those are what's structuring it. So you look at slide 10, you'll see that it has this thing called an attribute. The attribute that you see in some of this code, like note, is the actual XML element, and then the attribute inside of there is the date. Okay, so you can say date equals to, and then the corresponding thing. So it's like a property, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so that's on slide 10. So I can quickly just briefly show you that one right now. Okay, so say we have note, that's your actual element, and then you have a corresponding property, which is the date. And that property must be surrounded by some kind of quotes. Okay, so that type is really important. So for any time you're going to put something in, even if it's a number that you're expecting, it must be within the quotes for this type of thing to work. Okay, so we'll say that the date is, I don't know, what day is it today? Today is, then we have 10/2017. There you go. Okay, so you have a date inside of there. Okay, now this date is now saved inside of that particular property, and you can do whatever you want with it. Okay. Now, when you're dealing with XML and XAML, it already has some pre-things defined in it, and you're going to use it as you go through. And I'm sure you've seen it already. Okay, so if you go to slide 13, now shows you the connection between XML and XAML. Okay. And it shows you the corresponding thing with a button. So button here is an element. And the elements corresponding to that button, like the name and the values you have inside of it, are all the different attributes. Okay. And we'll continue on a little bit later on with some more topics for you.